Hello listeners, this is Sarah, and today I'm going to tell you about an incredible company that I found, StubForge. StubForge lets you buy realistic replica tickets for tons of events, anything from concerts to sports tickets to even recreating party invites. And the best part is they're printed on the same stock that Ticketmaster uses, so you know you're getting a quality product. This has been a complete game changer for us because we've lost so many tickets from haunted sites that we've gone to or even team outings that we've done. But through StubForge, we can now have those tickets back and we can have those memories forever. Give them a look and check out stubforge.com for all of your ticket needs and let them know that Paranormal in Pennsylvania sent you. Stay spooky, my friends. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and haunts.
Today's story takes us over to Philadelphia, to a powder keg, back to Gettysburg, right here to Pittsburgh. I'm Sarah.
And I'm David.
And I'm Erica.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So, it's up for debate if this is just one goblin scarecrow or multiple goblin scarecrows, but the being is described as looking basically like a demonic scarecrow. The scarecrow has tattered clothing, which I think is fairly normal for a scarecrow, but it's stuffed with thousands of insects instead of straw.
Oh, that's weird. Like maggots or centipedes or beetles?
I think all of the above.
Oh.
And the scarecrow has a pumpkin head, claws for hands, and teeth that can actually bite.
So this is like nothing like the traditional goblin?
No. But it's called a goblin scarecrow.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the most detailed account of this goblin scarecrow was actually in a book called Vampire Universe by Jonathan Mayberry. He wrote that the scarecrows are, quote, held together in the shape of a man by sheer demonic force of will, end quote. So the first ghost that they identified is said to be a World War II veteran. He's grumpy and likes to make sure that guests know he's there. He does not want to be forgotten. And he does this by banging on the walls and moving objects around when no one is looking.
Okay, I mean, could be certainly very startling, but at the same time, not malevolent, so positive. So he's not touching anyone, right?
No.
Okay.
And he just doesn't want to be forgotten. That's apparently they asked him his motivation, and that's what he said it was.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. They captured EVP, and there were reports of knocking during their investigation. Your face turned.
The knocking always freaks me out.
I don't know why. That your reaction, I was like, why specifically knocking? Does it remind you of Smurl?
Maybe. But yeah, the knocking to me seems so freaky.
Yeah.
It's like they're like asking to come in. It's like, homie, you could probably go through the wall. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think knocking is creepy because, and I don't know why I think of this way, I picture the spirit in the wall, like knocking on the other side of the driveway.
Yes!
Never just, like, they could really be standing, like, they could be in the room. Like, why do we think they're in the wall?
I don't know, but I definitely do, and it freaks me out.
Do you know that trope of, like, the joke of people living in each other's walls?
Yes.
Okay, that's what it makes me think of. Shout out Olivia, who says she lives in my walls.
So then they repeatedly just asked whoever was there to, like, touch the tech that they had set up on the rock. And one of them asks, would you be willing to touch one of these to show us you're here? And someone comes through the spirit box and says, agreed.
And then it lights up?
No, it never lit up.
Well, maybe it didn't understand the assignment.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I agree. And they're like, cool, waiting for it to touch something, and it's like, I did it.
Right. I came through.
Yeah.
I said something. So yeah, I was like waiting for it. I was like waiting with bated breath. Like I was like, but then nothing happened. And I was like, well, all right.
So the staff do think that it's haunted.
Okay.
Specifically, the kitchen is haunted.
Really?
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And a radio. And we talk a lot about the spirits not knowing something.
Yes.
Were radios prevalent? When were radios invented? Radios invented U.S.
I don't know why, but all I'm thinking about is that Captain America scene where he wakes up and there's a baseball game playing over a radio. So whenever that was said.
1890s. So no. So the radio has been known to turn itself on and off while specific staff members are in the kitchen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and they thought okay, you know, Erica's telling me the radio's turning on and off all the time. Erica's making this up.
Right.
But then one day it would be like, we're both in there, and it would do it when you're with me in there, but not when I'm alone. So they think that the ghosts like certain people and are trying to interact by turning the radio on and off.
Right.
Only when certain people are present.
Right.
So all of the claims have been seen by 2 people, so it's no longer just one staff member saying it.
Gotcha.
It really narrows down, in my mind, the possibility of any electrical issues. Thinking of it from a skeptic's lens, there's no way that it's just shorting out every time one person's in the kitchen.
Right.
Johns. What a name.
I mean, you'd think you'd go with, like, at
What
least James. Like, I get the JJ, but...
So, it was an actor. So I wonder if that's a stage name.
Well, honestly, A1 stage name.
Yeah.
Bad birth name, I think, but A1 stage name.
That's true. Bad birth. Here on Pip, we're here to judge your names. Submit them to us. But he suffered a heart attack on stage and ended up dying in the dressing room. So when he suffered the heart attack, they took him off stage to his dressing room where he died. And it's said that he haunts the dressing room dressed in a tuxedo. And it's specifically dressing room number 7, if anybody is there. And you can hear footsteps rushing around as if people are coming, either carrying him in or coming to give him medical attention.
Ooh.
So it's not just him, it's like the whole memory is preserved there.
Which, to me, kind of does sound like a residual
Yeah.
haunting, where there's, like, just the event is occurring over and over again.
Right, yeah.
Also, that's very sad. I feel bad that I made fun of his name now.
Well, who could have known, except me, who did all the research ahead of time. So when there are reenactors there, the reenactors have actually reported the same thing, seeing spirits of soldiers. So one story goes that a group of reenactors saw a soldier who they thought was a reenactor and signaled to the person to come over. He didn't say anything, but he joined them. And they went on with reenacting it, but once they reached a certain point on the battlefield, he fell down and disappeared. So people think that's when he would have been shot.
That's cool too.
Yeah, and it was it was one of the French, so they were coming out of the woods. And we know that 13 Frenchmen died.
So I'm wondering if that has like a lot of implications potentially for interacting with other battlefields. If you dress up in the times of the battlefield, do you get more of a response? Can you get more of a response? Or and then what are the potentials of like that going very negative and backfiring at you?
I see what you mean. If the spirit doesn't realize that they're dead and they think that you're genuinely a member of the French army in the war,
right?
What are you getting pulled into? That's a good question. This could be a whole multi-series podcast on itself about the history of Independence Hall. So I summed it up the best that I could, and all of the history comes directly from the National Park website.
It's a building where important historic things happened.
Great summary. End podcast. Nicolas Cage did steal the Declaration of Independence.
You bet I do.
Benjamin Franklin, it's so funny that you said what you said earlier. Benjamin Franklin haunts his grave not too far away in Christ Church Cemetery as well. You can also enter for a fee to see the cemetery. And so we know that he's there. And he's also seen in some other places around the city. Some people have reported seeing him wandering. So he's in many places. But he is commonly seen in Independence Hall in the assembly room. And he is sometimes accompanied by a musty smell. A musty smell is kind of a common report.
When spirits are near? Or
just about Independence Hall, people say it's paranormal, but it is 300 years old.
It is an old building.
And he's not just in the assembly room standing around. No. He appears to be examining a copy of the Declaration of Independence, which I think is so cool. It's like he's still reliving things, even as a spirit. And he does sometimes shift from room to room, almost as if he's walking around, but he is most commonly seen in that assembly room looking at the Declaration of Independence. Again, that Nicolas Cage stole.
But he did give it back.
Let the record reflect.
Let the record reflect that he was a nice man and gave it back.
And one local paranormal investigator who investigates abandoned buildings called Abandoned Steve went to the house, and I watched their whole video on this. And when they were walking through where these graves allegedly were, the camera kept identifying faces. Like, you know how it'll say, like, it'll, like, make the box appear, and trying to refocus on them. And that didn't happen anywhere else in the house. And the person's just standing outside in a field, and the camera's, like, refocusing.
That's terrifying.
And identifying people. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh. I mean, normally iPhone cameras literally can't pick up anything. And that's no offense to Apple. I mean, they do a great job. But we are not sponsored by Apple.
But if you're interested.
Yeah.
One of the things that freaked me out was one of the little cousins. And gosh, I think they were like 1 or 2. They said they were playing in the playground, and they said, "Look, eyes," and pointed straight ahead, but there was nothing there. And he seemed fixated on the spot and continued to stare at it, even though, you know, you give feedback to a child like, "Oh no, not eyes, there's no eyes," because you want them to know what the word is. So even though people were saying that to him, he was still staring at it, and then his eyes moved as if he was tracking something.
Yes, when small children notice potentially paranormal happenings.
Right, and that's actually what I have in my notes, is that it's often said that children easily connect with the paranormal. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right.
Let's do it.
First is the ghost of a little girl who can be heard crying in one of the rooms of the house. Some say that there's a newly constructed wall in one of the rooms, and that she's looking for her doll in her playroom that was on the other side of the constructed wall. So she's crying because she can't get through.
Oh, that's interesting. But when I hear of like ghosts like this on like a battlefield, like a non-combatant, how did she die? Why is she there?
Well, it was a farmhouse. She might have lived there.
Yeah, true.
Either way, her name is Katie, and she can be also seen in the spring house. And some visitors claim to have captured her in photographs, specifically of the second floor windows. So people say that they have photographs where if you look at the second floor in the windows, you'll see a little girl.
Is it more of like a shadow figure, did it say? Because my follow-up question here is, what kind of clothing was she wearing?
I don't know that you can really see her clothing, because remember, it's a little girl, so I think it cut her off like here.
Oh, so like very, very young.
Yeah.
Okay.
For those listening, I'm at like the shoulder height. Yeah, I think she's like 4 or something. I have no clue why I picked that number. I have nothing to at all prove that she was 4, but in my heart, she's 4. Facts. The story goes that his body was originally buried in Erie. His family or someone wanted the body to be transported to his home church over in Malvern, where this is. However, the road was tumultuous and many of his bones were lost along the way.
Oh my gosh.
So he can be seen allegedly doing the whole trek from Erie to his home church in Chester County, allegedly including passing through this battlefield looking for his bones.
I feel like, okay, here's the thing. That's like a 5-hour drive.
Yeah.
So, I guess my question, and I don't know if this was stated, but is it like just people have seen him at various points?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I don't know how long. I don't know if his ghost is like defying the laws of physics and can kind of be maybe in multiple places at once, or like makes the trek almost like he's driving kind of thing where it does.
Yeah.
But that must, I mean, if it's real walking speed.
I think it's just kind of existing in all parts of the trek on that day.
That makes sense.
The general manager, Cugliota, it's a last name, I'm so sorry if I butchered that, said that one night he heard his coworker moving throughout the building. He was waiting for the coworker to reappear and then finally called them asking what they've been doing. The coworker had actually left 20 minutes prior, which meant that Cugliota was alone in the tavern. And when he was interviewed about this occurrence, he was quoted as saying, quote, "If there are spirits in here, there'd have to be a zillion of them," end quote.
That's more than one for you viewers who aren't good with the maths.
I just think it's crazy that he so definitively felt like he heard someone walking around, that he was waiting for them so he could lock up, and it turns out he was in there alone. So it said that Zittel tried, once he found out that he could cure people, to help the local community as much as he possibly could. So part of that was curing sickness, returning stolen items was part of it, and he did not charge for his services. He did this all out of the goodness of his heart, and for that reason, he was a really lauded memory of the community. I mean, imagine if you lost your keys, or your cat. That's a great example. You lost your cat, you can't find it anywhere, and you could go to someone and they could tell you exactly where it is, or make it come back to you.
I mean, that's pretty cool. The cat coming back, I'm like...
Well, those are my examples. Those aren't necessarily examples that they gave. You
would love that, because if our cat got out again, you'd lose your mind immediately.
Yes. And if I could find someone with a way to get her, either of them, they're both hers, back to me, I absolutely would. So, yeah, I would love this. And I think it's really cool, you know, a lot of times I feel like paranormal believers or people in the paranormal community, mediums, wizard, witches, are often othered by people that aren't in the community. Obviously, we don't view them as negative or bad unless that is, like, depending on the person. But I think in a lot of the historical situations, they can be really othered. So it's cool to me that he was such a big part of the community and such a positive force there. It gets even crazier. So fellow reenactors actually took musket balls from him, thinking he was part of, you know, the reenactment. I know. They physically took musket balls. It gets better. So they then realized he was not part of the group, and they thought, what are these? So they handed them in, and they were taken to a specialist who confirmed that they were genuine musket balls from the Civil War era.
Okay. All right.
I know. I think that might be my favorite haunting we've ever discussed.
Yes, I agree.
It is so incredible because, and I know people have different opinions about matter and spirit's ability to produce something, but this is so crazy that they literally date back. You can carbon date? Well, I don't know if you can carbon date because it's metal. Anyways, they were said to be genuine. I don't know how, but they were said to be genuine by a specialist. There was no Pittsburgh before we were dating.
Okay. Fair. Totally fair.
No, I'm kidding. Objects have actually disappeared from the museum or moved between exhibits. And workers initially thought that this was other staff members messing with each other or them, but no one confessed, and it has continued over significant amounts of time. So it'll be like, this musket ball, I'm making up these things. This musket ball is in this room, like in a glass case. And then the next day when they come in, the musket ball is not where it's supposed to be, it's in another glass case.
That's
How did
interesting.
they move?
Yeah, my first assumption when I heard that things disappear is that's unfortunately like a staff member or somebody with malintention just lifting it and leaving.
Sure.
But I guess also though, like my first question would be, are there cameras pointed at any of the exhibits that moved?
I'm sure there were. It did say that they clearly weren't moved by staff eventually, like some of the objects, they weren't moved by staff, but it didn't say that it captured videos of them moving, which is what I would be interested in.
Right. So then it's like it teleported?
Right.
Or...
Does it teleport? Does it float out? I mean...
Well, theoretically, it couldn't float out if it's in a glass case,
well,
right?
I mean, like, it like magically opens and then like floats out as if the spirit literally is lifting it, but it's see-through. So the first is the spirit of a young opera singer named Mary O'Neill, and she is said to haunt the theater. She is said to have died on stage during a performance, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And so the spirit still roams the halls and will appear to guests in the audience. So you don't see her on stage where she died. You see her in the audience.
Which is interesting. I mean, that's interesting by itself.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to my mind was like, I wonder if the audience thought that it was part of the play. You know what I'm saying? For like a few seconds, like not realizing that something had actually happened.
Yeah, like Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine how startling. And so Chatham is apparently a pretty big university. Again, I didn't really know. Or a pretty big deal, I guess. It has 2,400 Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I mean, hail to pit. Hail to pit. Second up, we have Woodland Hall, which was initially built in 1909, but has undergone multiple renovations, including expansions in 1929 and 1592 when Columbus sailed. All right. No, it was not 1592. It was 1952.
Right.
So getting into later into the 1900s, more expansions and renovations. And a rumor on campus is the Blue Lady of Woodland Hall. And she is regularly spotted and often startles Woodland's unsuspecting residents. And I think you go to college, you hear a lot about like local legends and like traditions and stuff. And so people are probably saying, oh, everyone's saying my dorm is haunted. But then when you actually experience and see it, I'm sure it's very, very different.
Yes.
So she is said to wear a stately blue dress and has even been known to wander into students' rooms while she's wandering the halls.
That is not great.
I know.
And not like, it's not great of the ghost. I'm saying like people who are in these dorms are probably terrified.
Yeah. I cannot imagine waking up and seeing a woman in like a huge blue dress. I picture it as like a hoop skirt. I guess yes. I don't really know what stately is. That's how it's been described. But or woman in general in your dorm,
yes.
when you already feel, again, so unsuspecting. We should take a road trip. Sween, looking at you. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, yeah, we're going to wrap up this week's episode. Stay spooky, my friends. Stay spooky, my friends.
Spooky!